Did you know? Scientists have discovered that rats emit high-pitched, ultrasonic, giggles, when tickled, a sound too high for most humans to hear without special equipment. They even chase the researcher's hand for more, suggesting they genuinely enjoy the interaction.
Did you know? In 1962, a bizarre epidemic of uncontrollable laughter broke out at a girls' school in Tanganyika, now Tanzania, and spread to surrounding villages, affecting thousands. The outbreak lasted several months and was so severe that multiple schools were forced to close.
Did you know? In 1820, a Scottish adventurer named Gregor MacGregor invented the entirely fictitious country of PA in Central America. He printed his own banknotes and sold plots of land at 4 shillings an acre to hopeful settlers, many of whom sailed to find nothing there.
Did you know? U.S. President Andrew Jackson owned a pet parrot named Pole. At Jackson's funeral in 1845, the parrot had to be physically removed from the ceremony because it wouldn't stop swearing in front of the mourners. Subscribe for more daily fun fact. Did you know? Before the 19th century, dentistry was a grim trade. After the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, dentists flocked to the battlefield to scavenge teeth from fallen soldiers and craft them into dentures for wealthy clients.
Did you know? In 1972, a bomb exploded on a Jot Airways plane over Czechoslovakia, and flight attendant Vesna Valovic fell 33,000 feet, about 10 kilometers, without a parachute. She miraculously survived, spending months in a coma, and holds the Guinness World Record for the highest fall survived without a parachute.
Did you know? In 1945, a farmer in Fruita, Colorado, tried to butcher a chicken named Mike but missed the jugular vein and left most of the brainstem intact. Miracle Mike survived without a head for 18 months, fed via an eyedropper directly into his open esophagus, and became a touring sensation across America. Did you know? The anechoic chamber at Orfield Labs in the U.S. is so quiet that background sound levels are below human hearing. People inside report hearing their heartbeat, blood flow, and even joints moving.
Did you know? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that were still edible thousands of years later. Honey's low water content and acidity make it hostile to bacteria and fungi. Did you know? The species Turritopsis dohrnii can revert from its adult form back to its juvenile polyp stage when stressed or injured. In theory, this cycle can repeat, which is why it's nicknamed the immortal jellyfish.
Did you know? If you removed all the empty space inside atoms, the entire human race could fit into a sugar cube. Almost all atomic mass is in the tiny nucleus. Electrons occupy a huge volume relative to their size.
Did you know? When it was built for the 1889 World's Fair in Paris, many critics called it an eyesore, and it was meant to stand for about 20 years. It was spared demolition partly because it became useful as a giant radio antenna. Did you know? During the Cuban Missile Crisis, a Soviet submarine commander believed war had started and wanted to launch a nuclear torpedo. Another officer, Vasily Arkhipov, refused to approve it. His veto likely prevented nuclear war.
Did you know? In 1815, the eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia was so massive that the next year became known as the year without a summer. Global temperatures dropped, crops failed, and there were food shortages in Europe and North America.
Did you know? From 1912 to 1948, the modern Olympic Games awarded medals in architecture, literature, music, painting, and sculpture. The works had to be inspired by sport, and winners got actual Olympic medals. Did you know? During World War II, some suspicious words related to the D-Day invasion appeared as solutions in a British newspaper crossword shortly before the landings. After investigation, it turned out to be coincidence. A teacher had picked them up from soldiers' casual chatter without knowing their importance.
Did you know? When Apollo 11 was landing, a 16-year-old Australian tracking station employee, Glenn Nagel, part of a young local team, sometimes confused with other techs, helped switch to the best available signal from the lunar module. That's why much of the world's famous live footage was clear enough to watch. Did you know? Your intestines host trillions of microbes, roughly as many bacterial cells as you have human cells. Together they weigh up to 1 to 2 kilograms and help digest food, make vitamins, and even influence mood and immunity.
Did you know? For years people said old cathedral windows are thicker at the bottom because glass flows. The modern view is that window glass doesn't noticeably flow at room temperature, but structurally it's an amorphous solid with atoms arranged more like a liquid than a crystal, which is why its classification is still a bit unusual.
Did you know? Because Earth bulges at the equator and spins, you're slightly farther from the planet's center and experience a tiny bit of outward centrifugal force there. Step on a super accurate scale at the equator versus near the poles and you'll be a little lighter.
Did you know? Geologically, diamonds form quite often deep in the mantle. The rare part is getting them blasted up to the surface in the right kind of volcanic rock. Their high price is more about marketing, control of supply, and cutting quality than pure scarcity.
Did you know? In medieval Italy, the so-called War of the Oaken Bucket broke out between the city-states of Modena and Bologna after Modenese soldiers stole a Bolognese city bucket as a trophy. Behind the joke-like trigger were serious political and religious rivalries, but the legend of fighting over a bucket stuck.
Did you know? In the 1800s, London Dr. John Snow famously mapped cholera cases to a single water pump, but postal data was also used in that era to understand how people and diseases moved. Early epidemiologists realized that letter routes and infection routes looked surprisingly similar, helping them argue that diseases spread through contact rather than bad air.
Did you know? The nickname Bloody Mary for England's Mary I was popularized by later Protestant writers who wanted to paint her as a uniquely cruel Catholic monarch. Earlier and later rulers executed similar or larger numbers of people, but the slogan stuck and shaped her reputation for centuries.
Did you know? Prussian King Frederick William I obsessively recruited extraordinarily tall soldiers for his giant guards, sometimes paying families or having men kidnapped. Rival rulers sent tall soldiers as diplomatic gifts, so troop height became an actual bargaining chip in European politics. Did you know? Adventurer Eric Weihenmayer, who is completely blind, successfully kayaked the full length of the Grand Canyon's white water stretch on the Colorado River. He relied on intense training, audio cues from a guide, and memorizing the feel and timing of each rapid. Did you know? When NASA discovered Hubble's main mirror was slightly flawed after launch, it looked like a billion-dollar disaster. The eventual Glasses for Hubble repair mission used a system whose development was helped by meticulous ground testing and lab work done by many unsung technicians and custodial staff who kept the optics labs spotless. Tiny dust specks would have ruined the corrective optics.
Did you know? Most of the carbon, oxygen, and heavier elements in your body were forged in the cores of ancient stars and scattered by supernova explosions. Later, those atoms recycled into new stars, planets, and eventually you. So you're walking around as reassembled pieces of exploded stars.
Did you know? In some physics labs, scientists cool tiny samples of atoms down to just billionths of a degree above absolute zero. That's far colder than the vacuum of deep space, allowing them to see weird quantum effects like atoms acting as a single, superatom. Did you know? Sound can't travel in a vacuum, but space is full of electromagnetic waves from planets, stars, and the sun. When scientists convert these radio signals into audio, Saturn's rings, Jupiter's magnetosphere, and even our own auroras produce eerie, sci-fi sounding music.
Did you know? If you could magically scoop up a teaspoon of a neutron star, it would weigh billions of tons on Earth. That's because the star's gravity crushes its matter so tightly that atoms collapse and protons and electrons merge into neutrons. Subscribe for more daily fun facts.